Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. Would like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where my guest is Franklin Foyle. He is State Senator for District 16 here in the Baton Rouge area. He's going to talk to us about the recent legislative session where currently there are two bills pending before our governor for veto or acceptance. They're about transgender sports and about being able to carry a gun without a concealed carry. Also going to talk to you about three excellent bills that he got passed into the law. So join us on the next Legal Lines with Franklin Foyle.
Hi, I'm Sean Fagan of Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates. Open the phone book or look online. There are plenty of lawyers to choose from. And if you ask any of them, they'll agree that the vast majority of claims settle without ever having gone to trial. And I'll tell you, any lawyer can settle a claim. It's not hard to settle a claim, but it takes hard work to get a client what he or she deserves. At Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan Associates, we have a proven record of working hard for our clients. Whether you hire us at all, give us a call.
Hello, welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and I'm very pleased to have back on the show Franklin Foyle. He is our state senator for District 16. Franklin, fantastic to see you
Locke,
back.
great seeing you. Thank you for having me today.
I know you've been working hard the last several weeks, if not months, since it seems to never end for you guys. Kind of talk to me, initially tell folks, your background so they want to know why they won't care what you say.
Absolutely, and thanks again for having me on your show.
Of course.
I was elected, I'm from Baton Rouge originally. I grew up here, went to high school here, went to LSU.
We're going to both be buried here, born, raised, and die here.
You're right, I love it here. And so I went to law school, and I always wanted to be in the military and do some service. And so I joined the Navy JAG Corps program. And so when I got out of law school, I went to the Navy, active duty for 4 years. I spent 2 years in Washington, D.C., and 2 years in Pensacola, Florida, prosecuting and defending court martials.
My dad did too. That's his coat over there.
Awesome. I'll tell you what, it was great. And I really liked the active duty lifestyle, but we had our first child when we were in Pensacola. And I thought, I love raising my kids in Baton Rouge because this is where I was raised. So I came back to Baton Rouge, started a private practice, and joined the Navy Reserves, and have been here ever since. And I have 3 kids now who are now grown. And so I after being in private practice for a number of years and being in the reserves, I decided to run for political office in 2007. That was the first year term limits kicked in, where members of the legislature could only serve for 3 4-year terms.
So you spent 12 there.
So I spent 12.
And about to get booted.
Yeah, well, I did. I enjoyed it. And so I ran, and I was successful in 2007, and I spent 12 years in the House. It was a great experience. I got a lot of things done. I had a passion for helping people with special needs and veterans, because that's part of my background, and I felt like I had more work to do. So my friend Dan Claytor was term limited in the Senate, and he worked with me on my campaign, and I was fortunate to win a Senate seat. So that's where I am.
Dan was a great senator and a great person, great friend. We miss him, but glad you're there.
Well, I
somebody's
appreciate
going to take over, that's for sure. So, as I understand it, y'all have just finished up this regular session for 2021, is that correct?
We did, and this was a fiscal session, so it was a little bit shorter, but there was still a lot of things on the plate.
And you said maximum of 5 bills each of y'all could put up?
That's right. Five general bills is all you can bring, and then you can bring fiscal issues, because the focus is supposed to be on fiscal issues. Ironically, because so much money, we've gotten so much money from the federal government the last 2 years, there have not been any really budget problems. It's been an easy budget to balance.
First time in a long time.
First time in a long time, absolutely. And so there were a lot of bills that got high profile and a lot of attention that we took up this session. So we just finished up, and now we're waiting to see what the governor might veto, and whether or not we'll go to a veto session or not is up to us to decide as a legislature.
Now, as I understand it, he has a line item veto, the governor. He can just kill the bill completely, or he can change a line in the bill. And of course, the bill has to pass first, the House and the Senate. They come to the governor.
Sure.
So that's where we are right now.
We are, and the line item is for any money bill. So, for example, in the state budget, if he wants to line out a project that he doesn't think should be there, he has that power. The governor has a lot of strong powers having that line item veto.
You're one of the strongest governors in the union, right?
It is, because it allows him to keep the budget in place, but he can pick and choose which projects that he wants to be in the budget.
And don't we have a constitutional amendment duty to balance the budget every year?
We do. Unlike Washington and Louisiana,
Amen.
we have to have a balanced budget.
We can't print dollar bills.
We have to have a balanced budget at the end of the day. And the governor can also just veto a bill. There's several bills that he's vetoed recently, and we're going to see what happens with those bills. And we may go back to a veto session. It's really strange how it works. In the Constitution, you automatically go back to a veto session where it's like a special session, and we would address the vetoes.
And try and overrule them, I guess.
That's right. But it takes a 2/3 vote
Right.
to do that, which is a high bar.
Now, there's how many folks in the House of Rep and how many senators?
There are 105 reps, so you need 70 reps to override. There are 39 senators, so you need 26 senators to override. So it's a very high bar. It's easier to get to a veto session because you need a majority of the senators or reps to say, we don't want to go. But as long as a majority of the senators and reps want to go, you would go to a veto session.
Interesting.
So we'll see what happens.
So what bills are you anticipating? Wait, before I go there, we have what, a $36 billion budget this year? Is that right?
We do. It's probably the largest
Yeah,
budget
because I
we've
would
ever
say
had.
the previous year was like 30, wasn't it?
And you know, and the danger we have to be careful about, and I think we did a good job, is we cannot spend this money from the federal government on recurring expenses because
Right,
it's a
exactly.
one-time money. If it
That's
goes away,
what Dan Claytor used to tell me every single time, is that, you know, we're spending one-time money. We get this money one time, and we're acting like we're going to get it all the time, and so we pass stuff that is not really funded.
you can't look at today only and not think about tomorrow.
Exactly.
And so I think we did a good job about putting a lot of this money in infrastructure. Believe it or not, there was a debt we had the federal government for levee work from
I
Katrina.
saw that.
Can you
Yeah, what was
believe
it,
that?
$400 million?
Amazing. But here's what's so crazy. We're taking federal money to pay the federal government for the debt we owe them. So
Well, that's not any better way than to do it that way.
So it's worked out in that respect, and we really have been pushing to put it in bridges and roads and infrastructure.
Which we need.
We need
badly.
terribly, and that's something that we're always struggling with, especially in the Baton Rouge area. With traffic has been terrible here, but lately the flooding has been.
And am I reading stuff that's telling me they're going to widen? The money's now been put in place to widen I-10, I-12, and I-20.
Yes, there is money in place for all of those projects, and of course, we still don't have money in place for the Mississippi River Bridge. We have
Right, that was my
some,
next question.
But that is huge for people here, and you know they've been studying for years. Where do we put the bridge and so
So
forth.
where have we ended up? Do we know where
I
the
think
bridge?
there are like 3 spots, and I think it's between Bruley and Plaquemine on the west bank, and then somewhere down Nicholson Drive by the end of the parish on our side. But it's still a long way off. But I think there might be a possibility with all of this money that's coming in. There's going to be more infrastructure money, and I'll tell you about a bill we just passed this past session, and the government may veto it. I don't know, but I hope not. We said if you sell a car, we should start dedicating the sales tax on a car directly to infrastructure
Makes
instead of put it
sense.
in general fund. It makes complete sense.
You think they're going to do it though? Because that
Well,
takes money out of the general budget.
That's the question. The governor has not committed yet as to whether or not he'll sign that bill. We are, myself and others are encouraging him to sign it because this makes it disciplined that we're putting money into infrastructure. And also, if you want to bond out longer projects, the lenders
Dedicated tax.
exactly they'll say, hey, you've got this stability of funds, so we can loan you the money so you can start the project.
Now, I remember every few years I'd hear gas tax kind of surfacing. Dead on arrival right now?
Yeah, this year it was. I mean, that's something that has been out there, but with all the COVID money coming in, as well as people losing their jobs because of COVID and things like that, the gas tax just didn't have any momentum this
Doesn't
year.
make any sense right
Yeah.
now. People are hurting. And so, all right, well, so you were talking about what bills the governor may veto. And I think you kind of zeroed in on a few of them. Tell me about those.
Yeah, there are 2 big bills that are getting a lot of attention, and there are certainly strong feelings on both sides. One was a bill by Senator Mizell dealing with transgender athletes. And it says basically that if whatever biological designation you have at birth, those are the sports teams that you would be able to play on. So in other words, a man would not be able to play in women's sports. And
Which honestly makes sense to me.
I think it makes complete sense, and the senator's rationale is I want to be fair to women athletes.
Absolutely.
And that's sort of where I come
Well,
down
that's what
on
we
that.
got to do. We'll continue this on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith with Franklin Foyle, our state senator, District 16. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Sean Fagan of Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates. When insurance companies have been unfair, we've never been afraid to go to trial. Fighting hard to protect your rights, we never settle a case out of convenience. We only settle when it's right for you. Whether you hire us at all, give us a call.
I'm lawyer Collins Locke Meredith. Trust is important when hiring an injury law firm. At Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan Associates, thousands have trusted us and gotten the results they deserved. Visit us at LockeMeredith.com. Whether you hire us at all, give us a call, 272-5555.
Hello, welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. I'm very pleased to have back on the show Franklin Foyle. He is a state senator for District 16 here in the Baton Rouge area. Let's dive back in, Franklin.
Sure.
So you were talking about bills that the governor is contemplating whether or not to veto.
Right.
You said initially one was dealing with transgender participation in girls' sports.
Exactly.
And don't know what's going to happen. When is he making a decision?
Well, actually,
how long does he have?
On the transgender bill, he actually just vetoed that yesterday.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
So that just came down, and there's a lot of controversy around that. There are a lot of groups who want a veto session to override that. So we'll see what happens with that. And once again, from my perspective, it's not that I'm trying to discriminate against transgender people. It's just I don't think it's fair to have a man participate in women's
it's such
athletics.
a weird issue because we're talking about fairness, and yet one side, according to certain positions, is not being treated fairly, and of course that requires that the other side not be treated fairly. I don't know how you get a win-win in that scenario.
Yeah, we're sort of upside down in this world right now with some of these issues. But the other big one, which is really interesting, that I learned a lot about because it came through my committee. I'm chair of the Judiciary Committee.
Right.
And it dealt
C,
with
right?
Judiciary C in the Senate.
There's A, B, and C? Or?
There's A, B, and C. And C mainly does criminal matters, although it does some gun issues as well. And one it's called constitutional carry. And so there are folks that believe that, hey, the Constitution gives me a right to carry a gun concealed without having to get a permit.
And you can have a gun in your vehicle, right, in open view.
You can, and that's their argument. Their argument is, I can have it in open view, I can carry it in a holster on my side, but if I put a jacket on...
Which freaks people out if they see you walking around with a gun hanging off
I'm totally with you on that. I'd rather everyone who carries to conceal, because it does freak you out and can escalate situations, I think. So it didn't really make, to me, as I delved into it, I'm like, well, if you can carry it in the open, why would you prohibit it from, if it's concealed? Now, granted, some people from law enforcement came out, and I listened to them, obviously, and want to give them some deference. They were concerned that because of the lack of training, it could create more criminal activity.
But we know the bad guys, they're not going to get a concealed carry.
I talked to the head of the Public Defender Board and I said, you probably don't have these stats, but of the people that commit gun violent crimes, how many of them actually had a permit? Probably very few. So you have to take away or get away from the training argument. The issue is it responsible to allow people to carry guns without a permit, or constitutional, I should say?
I wonder if there's a way to incentivize getting trained.
Yeah, that's sort of what we looked at, and I think we're going to keep going that way, although I believe the governor will probably veto this bill only because he said at the beginning of session he would. So it may not come into law.
Now, there's some other states that have actually passed this, right?
They have. In fact, Texas, I don't know if it's gone all the way through, but Texas was looking at it. A lot of the states in the South have already passed it.
So interesting.
We'll see, and that'll be another push to go to a veto override session.
Well, that was my next question. So, assuming he vetoes both these bills, sounds like some folks on one side of the pendulum are going to have a reason to do a veto session, and on the conservative or right side of the pendulum is going to want a veto session. What do you think is going to happen?
I think we will probably have a veto session because it only takes a majority to have a veto session of both the House, of either the House or Senate. So it's
either one, majority of the House or majority of the Senate.
That's
then
right.
you got it. And the House has to show up if you guys vote that way and vice versa.
That's right.
Fascinating.
And so I think there's a good chance that we'll go into a veto session. However, to override a veto, it's a 2/3 vote. So let's look at the House, for example. You'd need 70 votes out of 105. Well, there are 68 Republicans and 37 Democrats. Well, the governor's got a strong influence over the Democratic caucus, and so I would be surprised if he could get to 70 votes in the House. The Senate, we have 27 Republicans. You need 26 to do an override, but there might be some Republicans who may back off. And these shouldn't be Democrat versus Republican issues, but anytime you're thinking about overriding a governor, they take it
very seriously.
They take it very seriously. That's right.
It makes sense. All right, well, let's shift gears a little bit. You did 3 great bills, and as I don't recall whether they've passed both chambers.
They did. They did.
Okay,
And
so
they've
now
all-
they're sitting in front of the governor, I guess.
And I believe they've all been signed.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations, and tell the folks what they are.
So one of the bills, every year I bring something for veterans because of my background.
And we're going to get in fact, after we talk about this. Go
Sure.
ahead.
And what this bill does, it allows universities to be designated as a veteran-friendly campus. And it requires the university to set up an office to help with tutoring, with help with registration, and mentoring and things like that. Because you have folks who may have been on active duty straight from high school.
Right.
They might have been in 4 or 5 years, and they just need help transitioning back.
And it's hard to transition back to civilian world. I mean,
It
I've
really
talked to
is.
a lot of guys. You
And-
know better than me, for
And
sure.
I'll tell you, my daughter went to LSU. It's a big
Oh, yeah.
system to maneuver. And so I think we owe it to our veterans to make it easier for them to enroll in the universities. And it will not cost much of anything to the state, but it'll be a great service when we do.
Great idea. What's the other ones?
So I've got 2 other bills that I was really proud of that I passed. The other one was cameras in special ed classrooms. And what this is about
Smart.
is you have these self-contained special ed classrooms which have 4 or 5 children who are very severely handicapped. In many cases, they can't even talk or communicate. And what happened is some parents came to me where their children had been either abused by a teacher or another student in the class, but the child couldn't tell them what happened.
I remember seeing some stories about
Very
this. a while
sad
back.
stories
Yeah.
when you hear it, and these mothers and fathers just tell it's very powerful. And so what this does, it simply says, if your child is in one of these situations, you can require the school to put a camera in the classroom.
So who pays for it?
Just a monitor. The state will. The state will pay it. We're not going to make the parents pay it, although schools can apply for foundation money and private money.
Why
in
would
that
we
respect.
not just do that anyway then?
Well, to me, it's just common sense, and you're protecting.
I guess
and-
it'll happen eventually anyway in all of them, but interesting.
Well, yeah, and you're sort of pushing, we're at the state level, we're pushing the local schools to do that. Sometimes there's some tension there, but
Got it.
I think most people realize this makes sense. And it also protects the teachers, because
Right.
it could be another student.
Just like a police officer.
It's the same
Camera
scenario.
Could hurt or help.
And so I'm excited about that. It was a tough one to pass, but we got it through, so I feel very satisfied. The third bill that I passed deals with the K through 12 savings account.
Which I love.
Yeah, anyone who has a child in K through 12 private school,
only parents, or can grandparents?
grandparents can contribute as well.
So it's like the federal bill.
Exactly. So, as you know, Locke, you have the 529 savings accounts. In Louisiana, we call it the START plan.
Right.
That's a college savings account which gives you federal and state tax breaks for your children when they get to college. So the K through 12 account, after the Trump tax plan, allowed us to use K through 12 money in a savings account and to get a federal tax break. What I did is I passed a state tax break as well, just like the college. So you're treated the same. So whether it's a K through 12 or college account, you as a parent can get a small tax break for saving money for your kid's education.
So is it limited to parents and grandparents, or can any relative contribute to the account?
It's open. Any relative could contribute and
And
get
do they have to be a relative?
No, they don't.
Okay.
I mean, it could be a godparent or
Right.
or a close friend, and they can get a tax benefit. But what it does is it encourages
Right.
savings,
Okay.
and people will have this break when they send their kids to private
And it's
school.
not just limited to college, it's limited to their entire life of education.
Absolutely, and as you know, here
It's
in
a
Baton
great
Rouge,
idea.
many of my constituents go to private schools. And if you decide your child doesn't need to go to a private school or it's not best for them, you can then roll that money into the college savings account. So you still don't lose
Fantastic.
it.
All right, we'll continue this on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith Legal Lines. Franklin Foyle, State Senator, District 16. We'll be right back. I'm lawyer Locke Meredith. If you're battling an insurance company because of a wreck not your fault and they're not calling you back or being fair, whether you hire us at all, give us a call, 272-5555, or email Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates. You have nothing to lose.
Hi, I'm Sean Fagan of Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates. When insurance companies have been unfair, we've never been afraid to go to trial. Fighting hard to protect your rights, we never settle a case out of convenience. We only settle when it's right for you. Whether you hire us at all, give us a call.
Hi, I'm Mitchell Meredith. Injuries happen when you least expect them to, making your life more complicated. At Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates, we know this and we strive to help each of our clients during these times. Whether you hire us at all, give us a call at 272-5555.
I'm lawyer Collins Locke Meredith. Trust is important when hiring an injury law firm. At Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan Associates, thousands have trusted us and gotten the results they deserved. Visit us at LockeMeredith.com. Whether you hire us at all, give us a call, 272-5555.
Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Pleased to have back on the show Franklin Foyle. He is state senator for District 16 here in the Baton Rouge area. Let's dive back in, Franklin. So,
Sure.
We were talking about the bills that you had successfully passed, and they're now law.
Right.
And the areas they focused on was K through 12 tax write-off at the state level, just like the federal level.
Absolutely.
You talked about the children who need severe care or
Cameras in the classroom for the
special
ed
needs
community.
folks.
Yep.
Cameras to make sure they're safe. And then the third one
veterans.
was veterans, setting up I guess an office that helps them prepare for
College
and then
life.
any challenges that they have during the college
Absolutely.
scenario. All great ideas. So tell me about ones that aren't your bills though, but you think have interesting scenarios.
Well, let me
before
start
them.
with the tax bills first, and that was a big push. You keep hearing about tax reform. You know, the problem is tax reform to you might be different to someone else. And so what we came out down with at the end of the day, which I think was a big compromise, but a big win for us, is right now you can deduct the federal taxes you pay on your tax return.
On the state tax return.
On your state tax return. You can deduct that amount. The problem, Locke, you have is if federal taxes are high, revenues in Louisiana are lower. If federal taxes go down, then our revenue's higher. So we are tied to federal tax policy.
And you're betting that federal taxes are going to go higher instead of lower over time.
I feel pretty comfortable right now that they probably will go up.
Sadly, I think you're right.
But you know, the problem is it's bad tax policy because we're tying our taxes to federal policy.
Understand.
So if we eliminate that deduction, what we're going to do for the public is we're going to limit the amount of income tax you have to pay. Right now, the top rate is 6%. We're going to lower that to 4.75. And hopefully put it around 4%.
Now, this is going to require a constitutional amendment?
It is.
Describe that process to folks.
Yeah,
What has
and
to
I
happen?
learned this through the process too. It's amazing how much stuff we have in our Constitution, which is for another show. In the Constitution, it gives you the federal tax deduction. It is in the Constitution. So to take that away, you have to do a constitutional amendment as
And
well.
not many folks, I imagine, would vote for that.
No, you've got to educate them and tie it in with, if you vote for that, you also get a lower state income tax. So we've got those tied in together, and it'll be on the ballot this fall, I think in October.
And I asked you this, I'm going, well, so they're lowered it to 4 or 4.5 now, but nothing keeps them from raising it. Actually, there is something to keep them. It's the Constitution.
You'd have to do another constitutional amendment. So what we did, because I'm with you, if I'm going to take away a tax deduction, I want to tell my constituents, I'm going to give you a tax break here and make sure it's not taken away later. So this will be on the ballot in October, and if a majority of the people vote for this amendment, then it will become law. But we'll see.
So it's a majority vote.
It's a majority vote, but it is going to be tough to get the word out because you've got to explain to people when they say, hey, I'm losing the tax deduction. No, but you get this. It's a trade-off. So that's a big deal. The other big deal from a fiscal standpoint is we passed a centralized sales tax collection issue. And that's in the Constitution.
Is that like a VAT?
No, what happens right now, we're one of like 2 or 3 states where we collect sales tax at the local level. Right. So if you're a business and you're doing business in Ascension Parish, EBR, Livingston, you've got to file sales tax returns in all 3 parishes. So what we're trying to do is say, hey, there's just one place, we'll have a state office that you file all of your sales taxes in a central location. The locals have fought that because the local sheriffs, they like control of that. Sure. So it's been a very big challenge.
What does Sheriff Sid Guttrow think about this?
I think he's okay with it. He and I have not had long conversations, but I think he's comfortable with it because they will get some fees for the services they do still. But when you're trying to collect internet sales tax and things like that, you need a centralized sales tax.
No, it makes sense from a rational organizational standpoint.
Another big, really hot topic, as you can imagine, is how do we deal with the COVID situation? And so there were 2 bills.
Meaning people don't want to be sued because something bad goes wrong.
Exactly. And so we passed legislation that protects a business if they take safety precautions and not do anything negligent. They cannot be sued if one of their employees or customers gets COVID.
Which is kind of what the feds did, right?
It is, and you really can't control it, but we put it in law to make sure businesses know you're protected. The other thing that's really important is some people are advocating if you go into a public building, you have to get a vaccination. Well, look, the vaccination is still an emergency status.
Amen.
I don't agree with that. Now, I've had people from the universities call me and say, well, we don't think anyone should come to campus if they don't get the vaccination or you pass this law. I'm not ready to pass that. I'm not ready to make that law yet. So what we passed was if it's a public place, that you don't have to have the vaccination to have access. Now, private business can do whatever they want, and I have no problem with that.
Which is fine.
The third really big area that got a lot of attention was marijuana, of all things. And this has changed drastically, the thoughts and attitudes.
When we were growing up.
Yeah, 12 years ago when I was in office, there was no form of any legalization of marijuana. So it started with medical marijuana, which I'm fully in support of. I think if
I've done a show on medical, on the CBD.
Yeah, that's what it is. And
that was probably the impetus.
And you know how important that is. If it can help someone, I'm all for giving someone help. I'm not ready to support recreational marijuana yet, but I am fine.
But a bill was proposed, right?
There was. So someone had a bill in the other extreme that said, hey, you can just do marijuana for whatever reason. It did not get out of the House. It got out of committee, but it did not get enough votes. Now, I can tell you, I do a survey every year of my district, and it's not scientific, but I ask people some questions, they send me back. I had 52% in favor of legalizing marijuana. That was nowhere near the case.
I imagine,
10 years ago.
The argument is they're going to get it. If they want it, they're going to get it. And the state gets no revenue.
That's exactly right.
And we don't know the quality and all that kind of stuff. And so it's an interesting dilemma.
Yeah, I think it's coming. And then the other big bill, which is sort of a compromise, right now, if you
and I've never smoked dope. I'm like Bill Clinton, but I'm serious.
No, me too. Especially
it was our generation,
Absolutely, but right now, if you possess a small amount of marijuana, you can still go to jail. And so we passed a bill to say
of people it should not be.
Yeah, it doesn't completely decriminalize it, but it makes it a misdemeanor where you don't have to where you can't get jail time, and it's a small fine. I don't think you should ruin people's lives over possession of a small amount of marijuana.
Let's shift gears real quick.
Sure.
Your role as the top military, one of the top military judges in the nation. Tell folks about it real quick. How much time?
Yeah, I'm on the Navy and Marine Corps Court of Criminal Appeals in Washington, D.C., which I'm very proud of. And what it is, it's the highest military uniform court for appeals of court martials. And so basically, the Navy and Marine Corps are part of the same
criminal in
department.
nature, right?
They're criminal. So if any Navy or Marine is convicted of court martial worldwide, their court of last resort for a military court is the court I sit on in Washington, D.C.
And they have an absolute right for your court to hear?
They do. They have an absolute right to file an appeal to our court. We sit as panels of 3 judges. We have 3 panels, and it's usually 2 active duty members and 1 reserve. And I go up to Washington once a quarter, and I will meet with the other judges. We'll hear an oral argument, and then we write opinions. I have 2 published opinions already that I've put out on some cases where I got to write. So it's been fascinating.
And you've been doing it. You've been in the military world for almost 30 years now.
I have.
You said you're getting ready to have to retire, right?
I have to retire in November. I hit 30 years. The last 8 years I've spent on the bench. I was a military judge, a trial judge for 4 years, and I got to travel literally all around the world. I even tried a case in Japan at the Navy base there. And then I've been on the appeals court where I'm going to finish off my career for the last 4 years.
Well, that's fantastic. Quickly, it sounds like there's a lot of differences between the way your role was executed in the House versus in the Senate. Let's plan on getting together here shortly and tackling that one. We got about 30 seconds?
Yeah, the Senate's a lot smaller, so it's a lot, I think, quicker to get things done and easier to get things done. I've really enjoyed it.
All right, fantastic. Franklin, thank you so much.
Thanks, Locke.
Great to see you. Look forward to having you back. This is Locke Meredith, Legal Lines, Franklin Foyle, District 16 State Senator. Thanks for being with us.